started, everyone. So good day. Thanks for joining us. Looks like we've got a really good turnout today, so I'm really excited about that. Lots of viewers have joined up. So thanks for spending some time with us today. We have a really special webinar in store for everyone. We're going to be talking about our new product launch called UNIFI Connect. So really happy to speak with everyone today. My name is Steve Germano. I'm one of the directors here at UNIFI. And I'm also very happy to be joined by our special guest today, Lauren Collier from SSOE. Lauren, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Great. So a little bit of housekeeping first. As we get going throughout this presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A section of the WebEx application and go ahead and ask your questions. Submit them in as they come to you. We're going to be answering them towards the end of the presentation, but go ahead and submit them as they come to you, and we'll start going through them towards the end, okay? We're also going to be recording this, so this presentation will be sent out to everyone who registered once the presentation is over later today. All right, so introducing Lauren Collier. So she is a department manager at VDC Global Initiatives at SSOE. That's a mouthful. It sounds like a fun role. Lauren, I believe we met, several years ago, right? I think at AU for the first time when we had released UNIFI during the very early days, and we were just getting folks on board and getting different firms to look at it. And yourself being a very progressive mind in the industry, you really worked with us early on to help us improve the platform, and your firm had implemented UNIFI globally. Can you give us a little overview of SSOE and your role there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, you're right. We did. I think it's maybe three years ago, maybe. But, you know, what was so valuable was we saw UNIFI as a high potential use case. And, you know, being a conservative AEC firm, you know, headquarters in the Midwest, you know, you had to be able to introduce new things, especially when it costs money,
right.
You know, for the right reasons. So the biggest value was the fact that you were willing to work with us, find out the right solution to fit our needs, and it made the actual purchase and execution extremely easy. But a little bit more about me. Architecture by trade, quickly fell in love with technology, wanted to be more of a project delivery practitioner, realized through BIM, Lean, and VDC, I can use my talents and my passions, and SSOE has provided that opportunity for me. We're leading the VDC Global Initiative, and it's introducing virtual design techniques and BIM uses into our practice.
Yeah, and I've personally enjoyed working with SSOE, getting to know several of the folks throughout the firm in several different locations there, and you guys have quite a big global presence, but you always seem to be kind of pushing that status quo with not only just design, but also on the fabrication processes and technology. So for me personally, it's been a pleasure to get exposure to that and see how you guys are kind of doing some innovative things and seeing where we can help and kind of innovate with you and alongside with you. So that's been a lot of fun for me. Do you want to give continue to give a little bit of overview on SSOE and some of the unique things you guys are doing as far as pushing the envelope on VDC technologies?
Sure. So many people ask me all the time, what does VDC mean? And how does that apply? How does that apply to me? Well, you really break down the acronym. You know, virtual design is the foundation. So in order to do any type of downstream uses, we have to have some form of BIM foundation. And then we choose what is appropriate for the projects and what can apply into construction, such as, you know, fabrication or sequencing. Can we tie in procurement and cost, quantity takeoff, et cetera? So from a fabrication level and how it identifies the content and content management, you know, piping and spooling, as well as steel fabrication, those are two really big markets for us. But the content is extremely important. And, you know, right here, what you have up here, these are our, you know, this is our VDC goal. We have to return the value back to the customer. It's not necessarily about doing everything out there that is possible with BIM and or VDC. It's applying the right value add. And at the end of the day, it's, do we have the right team? Are we using the appropriate processes and integrating the right technology? Because if we're not saving time, trouble, and money, you know, we're not gonna get more work. So, you know, that's the heart at what we do. We have a global presence. You showed a few of our slides. We have several offices, up to 21, I think a little bit more now, in the United States. We have a large industrial presence, semiconductor, and manufacturing, automotive. We do some commercial building, but you know, our goal is to be, you know, a world-class delivery company.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks for that, Lauren. Yeah, you guys are always pushing the limit, so it's been you know, a real pleasure to work with you folks over the past couple of years. So I'm going to start off today with talking about a survey we sent out. I think it was around last summer, and we sent out a survey to all the UNIFI customers globally, and wanted to really start to gauge some information, get some feedback from the industry on how folks are utilizing manufacturer-based content today. Is anybody using it? How much are they using it? What are they using? And really get some quantifiable data and objective data back from these folks. And so in this survey, what we found was that the vast majority of folks are utilizing manufacturing content. Almost 93% of our customer base is saying, yeah, we use it, but 38% of that was only for very specified types of products and not for everything. And we kind of dove into that a bit deeper. We kind of asked several questions around the challenges of using manufactured content, as well as trying to better understand why only specific types were being used. And by far the largest challenge was really around quality. And while quality is very subjective, there are some very specific things with families that we can, you know, that really cause an issue in our projects and can even cause corruption issues, crashing issues, things like imported CAD geometries, which, you know, I'm sure we've all kind of seen some of those challenges. Lauren, I think you could probably attest to some of the quality issues you've seen. You know, what kind of things have you seen in your experience with manufactured content at SSOE?
I mean, you hit at several of them at a very high level. Depending contractually where we are in the project, either with our owner or with a construction manager or GC, it's not only about quality of geometry, because one bad family can corrupt a whole model and put the project at a halt. But also, along with over complicated geometry, large file sizes, sometimes there's too much information, and if we're only developing a model where we don't want to specify the manufacturer, the risk we run is that information, if we're, you know, exchanging models, that vendor, you know, equipment could be in there but not match our spec. Right away we have an inconsistent data, then we have an RFI, or it could be ordered or purchased. So, you know, identifying what we want to use the model for and making sure our content reflects that need, you know, that's where it's extremely important for us to have a trusted place to go.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because you think about the perspective of, well, what happens when we're doing, you know, a government-based project where we have to be generic, right? We can't really call out manufacturers specifically. There's a lot of different instances and situations where, hey, we have to use our generics, and it makes a lot of sense. And the firm-wide consistency of those generics is really something that we see most firms gravitate towards. I mean, that's what UNIFI's platform helps firms to do, is really manage this content, control it, and all those things. But then there's so many specific types of products that are just really niche, and that's what we've seen from kind of the survey that we got and the feedback that we've got and the communication we have and the constant you know, validation with our customer base is that certain categories of products with furniture and MEP equipment lighting, right? These different categories are just so unique. And for us to sit there and make every single product ourselves is really, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. There's a lot of, there's a lot of wasted time and effort. So another area where we see is really a challenge is kind of around standards. It's another area that requires us to modify our manufacturing content, such as shared parameters, and being that those shared parameters are unique to your firm's Revit schedules, any content you bring in from the outside, it's just never going to really be able to be scheduled on your own in-house schedule. So then you download a piece of content from a manufacturer's site or a repository, then you're going in and you're editing and you're swapping their shared parameters to your shared parameters, and you better hope they're not using formulas in those parameters, because then you got to backtrack through that, and it just becomes very inefficient, right? So it's an inefficient process. And this whole process just takes a lot of time, and it's all about scheduling correctly. And so we see standards as kind of this challenge in the industry where we think there's some opportunities to streamline that process as well. Another one of the primary issues is really control and maintenance. And with any designer having the ability to go to websites and download content, it introduces risk to our projects or into our project environments. And for BIM managers, really having little to no visibility in who's bringing in content into what projects until it's too late, and a project is then having speed issues and crashing issues, and we have to kind of track down the culprit to find out it was maybe a piece of manufacturing content brought in. So Lauren, at your firm at SSOE, have you guys in the past, how have you handled mitigating the risk of rogue vendor content making it into your projects?
That's a really tough question. We would like to say we are handling it with grace, but you run a line of you don't want to police too much so that you lose the trust of your modeling staff, but at the same time you need to educate your modeling staff of those risks of putting in that rogue content. You never want to have to make an example of somebody. Sometimes a little shaming, may be necessary, but what we're doing is, we have somebody in that model management role. We are running maintenance on the models. There's always opportunity when something is identified, to have those conversations. We have to teach our BIM leads to really understand the concept. But then, we do manage our content. We are a UNIFI user. We prefer them to go there to get their content first. But at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily stop them. So our opportunity is to make sure that is the place they always want to go, so that they don't start searching elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this example on this slide, I love this slide. I mean, how many times have we seen this type of scenario? And it may be small. Well, that's only just the drain that's overmodeled. Yeah, that's true. But, as you start to multiply this out by every product across several different categories across an entire building, right, we start really beefing up file sizes. We start really getting into speed degradation issues. We start getting into print visibility issues with different different views and orthographic views, that a lot of this content may not have masking regions and be drawn in different levels of detail, or be able to take advantage of the different detail levels of Revit, I should say. And so, it's kind of one of the biggest gripes, right, that we hear as a design community is most of the, well, I guess a lot of the content, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the content manufacturers provide, they kind of have this tendency to overmodel the geometry. And I mean, how many times have you seen these types of examples, Lauren, in your day-to-day practice? And it's very, very consistent, and it's out there quite a bit. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. The manufacturers, they want to do the right thing. They want to provide the design community with an actual product, an actual, 3D element of their product. They may not quite understand what is truly, what is truly needed. The example you have on the screen, this happens daily. With so much Revit content available online, without turning off the internet, it's almost impossible. And if I turned off the internet, I can't have UNIFI.
That's true. Don't do
That's
that.
true. It doesn't prevent anybody from going and getting it. Our opportunity here is working with our manufacturing community, identifying, you know, the different levels that are acceptable. Because look, I mean, if there's good content from a vendor and it can have the geometry can be middle of the road, but the data is rich, there's two things that is going to happen. We're going to continue to use that data because we can trust it. And then on, you know, the second thing is we're also always seeing that vendor's name. We're going to actually look into that product and is it a viable product to specify. So it really is a win-win, and it's a huge opportunity for us to actually have a more consistent model. But at the end of the day, I will go back, it has to bring value to the project. And if you're not doing a project that needs that certain level of detail, you know, we really have to question, are we over-modeling because that's what we have, or do we need to scale it back?
No, absolutely. I mean, the key word there, I think, is trust, right? And in addition to trust and confidence in that manufacturing content, you know, the industry really wants, like, we want the content fast, right? Let's be real. It's the world of instant gratification, right? We don't want to have to go out to 10 different places and start searching for these products. And, you know, worst case, we may find the same brand having models posted in different places across the web, and they're actually different, even though they're supposed to be the same products. So there's a lot of, like, disparity in where we find this content today, but we want it fast. We want to be able to search quickly. We want to be able to compare similar products, and we want to get them into our designs, right, as quickly as possible and get back to our actual jobs, and that's doing designs. That's staying in that design environment in Revit and actually designing our buildings. And the more time, you know, design staff spends hunting various websites and places to find this content, the less time they're spending actually designing. So that's one of the things we think we can streamline there, one of our key goals with this product here. And then another one is the siloing of data, which is a big issue in the industry as we see it. As soon as, you know, I always go back when I start talking about this to the example of a manufacturing rep coming into my office and dropping off a catalog in the office. By the time he drops that catalog off, it's already outdated, right? Typically we just go to the website, the manufacturer websites, we're getting their PDF cut sheets, we're getting the product specification data from there. We trust it from the manufacturer. That's always going to be up to date, and the latest and greatest is going to be found on those websites. We expect the same thing from the Revit content models. It's the virtual specification of that model or of that product, and we want that data to always be real and up to date. But when changes are made, how do we ever know? So if we go to a manufacturer's website and we download content, we put into our projects, when the manufacturer makes a change to that product, they omit that product or they update it or maybe they sunset it, you know, how do we ever get notified of that? And so we're trying to solve that challenge by keeping everything analytically connected so that when a change is made and republished by that manufacturer, we can get those notifications and see those notifications quantified up by all of our projects and say, hey, we use this product in these 10 projects and it's out of date and we're getting close to CDs. Let's make sure we get this updated before we end up with a change order, right? After we submit these drawings out and the contractor says, well, this thing doesn't exist, we get an RFI and a change order, which it just takes time, takes money, costs the owner money onto the project. So we also have this need to communicate with our manufacturers, right? Whether it's a manufacturer directly or whether it's a manufacturing rep, communication is key. And so understanding how products work, getting assistance even with design assistance for specific projects, there's a need to reach out to the manufacturers, and we want to make sure that we can have that collaboration and foster that collaboration on the platform with UNIFI Connect here. So looking at the process today, you know, folks go to websites, they download stuff, they bring them in their models, it's disconnected, like I was saying earlier, and a lot of times these manufacturers are hosting their content in various places across the web, and so we really want to provide control around this. Like Lauren was saying earlier, once a firm has trust in the manufacturer's content, its quality level of hygiene, if you will, is up to par with that firm's standards, then they want to be able to make sure that they can provide their users with access to it in a controlled fashion and always keep it up to date. And so we want to make sure that this cycle is fluid, where the manufacturers can push their product updates, keep their content live, all on the cloud, all in a singular location, while also getting back communication from the designers. So you can 5-star rate manufacturing content, and those ratings can be aggregate across the entire design community, giving that feedback back to the manufacturers. They may not know a lot of times that, hey, the content that we had created, is maybe has some downfalls to it. They want to hear from you guys as their customers. They're trying to do everything they possibly can to give you a good experience with their content. So we want to make sure that that communication process flows really nicely, and also giving them some analytics as to what's being used. Maybe they're focusing on different product lines that aren't really being specified that much. So we want to give them some good analytics there as well, so they can have some good guidance into what product lines to focus their modeling efforts on. So Lauren, how do you see a firm or global firm like SSOE improving the current process you're going through with a system like Connect?
Well, what the opportunity Connect brings to a global firm, being stationed, and most of my design career has been on stateside projects. I do have exposure to some metric and international projects, and being able to access correct content based on the correct location that provides some certainty into our modeling and availability. When you start getting into the fabrication level of content, your content creation has just multiplied. And it's not only the creation of the content that is multiplied, it is how correct is that? Is this piece still valid? Are these valves still available? So, we've invested hundreds and thousands of hours in content creation. The other risk we've run, and it's a low value add, but extremely important, is maintaining that content. And again, I'll use the word trust again. If there is a trusted relationship with that vendor content, and there is a potential notification that if a valve, has stopped being made or something has changed, that could change an analytical calculation, that could change a size, that could change availability for purchase, it could change cost. Those are very important things when you go from design intent to design and fabrication. And there's huge opportunity for us to build those relationships with the manufacturing community and provide more certainty in our BIM deliverable.
Yeah, we're seeing very similar scenarios with many global design firms where folks are getting, they're getting more advanced now, right? We've all been kind of doing or saying we can do BIM adequately, and we're modeling adequately. We're now trying to leverage what are we doing with these models. We're getting into a higher level of development, a higher level of detail, whatever acronym you want to use for that. And we're starting to leverage things like, can we automate pipe spooling drawings directly out of our models? Can we automate ductwork and sending that straight off to CNC machines? And contractors are getting really involved with extracting from the model and leveraging more and more higher levels of detail and information to actually get those accurate quantities and accurate pipe spooling drawings and things of that nature. So it's becoming almost more and more critical as time goes on, as the industry progresses, to have almost a higher level of detail type of content. So we're starting to see this where some manufacturers, not a lot, but some are starting to provide, here's design intent versions of or models for my products, and then here's actual fabrication levels. And when you look at kind of the MEP systems world with the integration of fabrication that Autodesk has done in Revit, we're seeing kind of an uptick there on products such as ITMs and things of that nature, and that type of content for the manufacturers. Are you guys at SSOE leveraging any of that type of automation level where you get into pipe spooling automation and exportation from the models today?
Yeah, we are doing that. Some of that we do have, depending on, we do have to take it into an additional software. Our preferred method is to stay within your platform. Softwares are getting better and allowing us to do that. But of course, we're always at the mercy of our software developers. But, with more specialized content, that's making it more possible. You know, another very important concept that you brought up, and what this does is it evens the playing field, where, you know, there are large firms that can invest in content creation. Sometimes the smaller to middle level firms just don't have, you know, the overhead to invest in that, and it sometimes can provide, you know, make challenges for BIM execution within those environments. If there is access to generic level content that can easily be upgraded to a higher level of content, you've just evened the playing field for the industry. And before, it was the people who can invest in that content creation were the ones that were leaping ahead. But I'll be honest, we have spent a lot of time and money, you know, in that, and at the end of the day, you know, was it value add for us? You know, we have to make that own gut check ourselves.
Yeah, and I think every firm has to make that decision. What's best for your firm? How do you guys want to progress in you know, as a design practice, as a VDC department? How, you know, what's the best route? And everyone has a different answer to that question. Some folks do that upfront investment. Most of the larger firms do. Some of the smaller firms are, you know, they don't have the personnel, they don't have the time, they don't have the money to invest in a large library. So they're really looking for sources for content. So, you know, here at UNIFI, we want to make sure all the content that's going into Connect and by the manufacturers has a certain level of hygiene, so it's not corrupt, first and foremost. You're flexing types and the types work, they don't break. There's no imported CAD geometries, and it simply has the identity data filled in to properly represent the manufacturer's data and product information. So we're not going to play, we don't want to stand in the position of being world police on content quality, right? Because quality is really in the eye of the beholder. A smaller firm who's early off in their BIM implementation curve is really just trying to focus on getting CDs out the door and is really looking for many content sources. Larger firms like yourself, Lauren, at SSOE is going to be a bit more strict as to what content they're going to allow into their ecosystem. So this is why we've built a subscription center that gives control to the administration staff at a design firm to say what brands are going to be allowed and accessible for their design staff. And without further ado, I'm going to jump right into a web browser, and we're going to take a look at that and start to demo this live. So all of the administrators today have access to the UNIFI Analytics and Management Portal, so you can go to app.unifilabs.com, and let me just go ahead and refresh this. So in this application here, you've got analytics, you've got event streams, you've got your notifications, you've lots of great stuff in here, batch tag management tools. If you haven't checked this out yet and you are a company admin, I highly say go check this out, and there's lots of good tools and things you can do in here. But you'll now notice it's currently live is a subscriptions tab. And in this subscription center, you're going to start to see brands being populated. We have lots of different manufacturing brands we're working to get onboarded into this system right now. You will see this is, while this is available live to all customers, the way to consume it in the desktop application, which I'll show you in a minute, is only for early access, available for early access customers today. If you want access to that, please do email us after the webinar. But for those folks who do have it, we're getting feedback from them right now and getting this fully vetted before we launch live to everyone globally. So you see there's a bunch of different companies in here and brands. You're also going to see the out-of-the-box libraries. So one of the challenges with the OOTB libraries just in general is you can only get them from the Autodesk Revit installer, which, most folks, they go and they get that stuff and they put it on the company, network shared access drives. And if you're a UNIFI user, what we see is a lot of the companies are taking that same content and uploading it right into UNIFI as well. So we're getting a lot of that repeat. So we wanted to provide an easy way to go in and subscribe to that content. So you're going to see the out-of-the-box libraries you'll see here. These are being populated as we speak, so many countries are coming online, probably be completed towards the end of this week. But for any type of brand, you can come into a company like this, this genuine fake company. So let's go check this out. I can click subscribe, and I'm going to see some information about the company overall. I'm going to see some kind of a description and detail. I'll have the website here, or I can go back to the manufacturer's website. I have their email contact information to contact sales or whoever that particular email is going to be. But then what I see here is user groups, and these are my user groups in my company. So I'm going to go in and let's say this company here is a brand that we typically specify. I'm going to go take a look at it. First thing I'm going to do is more than likely, most firms have an administration group. I'm going to subscribe to the administration group. Once someone subscribes here, you then flip into Revit and in UNIFI in the desktop application, and what you're going to see here is whether you go to search or you go to browse, you're now going to see a new option. It's going to be called channels. And if I expand out the channels, I can see what particular channels I am allowed to view based on what user groups are subscribed. So I'm currently logged in as an administrator, so that genuine fake company is showing up here, and that channel by that company is showing up here. Now, what this allows you to do is, let me shut off my shared libraries. And I've got a ton of libraries in this company. I've got like 40,000 pieces of content. It's a pretty big company. So I'm going to search currently, I'm going to search through my company-approved generic libraries, and now I'm also going to search in the same search through some manufacturing channels. And I'll do something like, let's do like an exec chair and see what we get from these multiple sources. Now, with this search result, the integrity of search engine is always going to be maintained. It's always about finding the most relevant content for you, regardless of the source that it's coming from. So you'll see here I've got a generic piece of content from my company library. I've got a piece of content coming from Dunder Mifflin Company. I've got an out-of-the-box piece of content that's matching. I've got another generic, another out-of-the-box, and then 3 from another vendor. So this mixed result is all based on the relevancy of the search engine. It's just coming from multiple sources now. So I may be early on in my design and I'm maybe in SDs or DD phase. The right choice for me during this choice may be a generic or something that's in my internal libraries. Or maybe you're going to spec someone like a Hayworth or a Knoll or Herman Miller type of product, and you kind of know what manufacturer you're going to go with already, and this choice is already here. Because it's been company approved, you'll have rights to be able to use it, and it's already approved in your ecosystem. Just like anything in UNIFI, you click to download and insert directly in, and insert that directly into your model. Okay, so the same type of functionality that you're used to from searching and browsing of your existing content is available here, just with multiple sources. And you'll see the logos will show up in different view modes for the different sources as well, so you can quickly identify where the source is coming from. Under the Browse section, you're going to notice a little bit of a slight tweak here. We've separated out libraries from channels. So on the Libraries tab, you'll see all your company and shared libraries in here, like normal. Then when you flip to channels, you'll see all the channels here. So we're just kind of separating this out, making it a little bit easier to navigate between the two. And we have some more things we'll be doing in the future here. You go ahead and click on a particular company. You'll see the family category breakdown like normal. And then jump in there, and you'll see all the content available by that particular manufacturer. Okay, if we dive into a piece of content, the product pages are also modified a little bit from what you're used to seeing. You'll still see the high-level information up top, the ability to insert from the image. You will also have the ability to 5-star rate and rank this content, and this is important. The manufacturers really want to have this communication back to them. So again, in an effort to make content in general across the globe a higher level of quality, we have to communicate back to them. So let's make sure we do that and give them feedback if it's good or if it's bad, right? It's important. You have a link here. You'll see their logo. That link will get you back to their manufacturer website, and it'll punch up your web browser. You can also email the manufacturer. So you have a question about a particular file. When you click the email, it's going to put the name of the file in the header of the email, so they'll know exactly what you're referencing. And this email may be routed to their particular teams internally that can speak effectively about the content, so you can get a hold of somebody there that can actually help you for different challenges that you may have, or if you have new product requests, you can email them as well there. Just like normal, any of the content that gets uploaded to UNIFI's cloud is parsed out here. So we'll see this is a piece of furniture by a furniture manufacturer. We've got product pages, URLs. You punch those up, go right to the product page of that particular product. So this is just showing the parameters and their values from this particular product itself. Okay. In addition to that, because this content's in channels, you can again use those in saved searches. So if you want to have a saved search that says, hey, show me all chairs from across these 5 manufacturers, right? You can set up pretty advanced saved searches like that really quickly, really easily, and just have that stuff available for your designers. So it opens up a lot of opportunities and a lot of workflows which previously haven't been available in the industry. So we're pretty excited about that. But everything flows through you as the BIM manager or your BIM management team. They're going to be the gatekeepers here. We're going to work on some ways for the next version for if you're just a normal user and you're searching here to show you some brands that you may not have access to just yet and then allow you to request access to them. But for right now, we want to make sure that the ecosystem gets populated controlled and only that good content is coming into your ecosystem. So let's take a look at another example. If I jump into, let's go to my Australian out-of-the-box library. Another thing about channels that's going to be interesting is we're starting to see manufacturers making regional specific content libraries. So they may have different products they sell in the U.S. as compared to Europe, as compared to Australia, and these channels can be regionalized. So they may have 3 different channels for 3 different regions, and the content and the data in the content may be completely different for the products they manufacture. So we want to give you guys the ability to say, okay, well, this out-of-the-box library by Australia, I'm going to subscribe my Australian user group to have access to it. None of my other user groups need to see this. So we can reduce the overall clutter. It's not a singular dumping ground, right, where you just go and search and you see products from all across the globe for all different languages, for all different regions that may never be applicable to you. Some of our UNIFI customers, I would say the majority of them have the user groups broken down by region. But there are some customers, especially the A&E customers or multidisciplinary customers that are breaking it down by discipline. So this particular, if we went into a particular brand like, say, Encom, this is an electrical product manufacturer, I may only subscribe my electrical department to it. And that way the HVAC or the fire protection or the plumbing groups, they don't need to be worried about that type of product or that brand. They don't ever have to see it. It doesn't clutter their searching or their access to content, right? We want to always make sure that we're getting folks access to content as quickly as possible. Okay, so that's, let's see. So as a designer, you're going to see those channels. You're going to have access to them. Everything that you're using here is also going to be, it's going to be tracked. And so if we look at the ability with the analytics that we have in the system, the ability to track this data is going to be really important. Now, I don't know how many of you have taken a look at the event stream that's currently available in the web portal, but that is starting to track the revisions of content and what content's been loaded into what projects. And when that stuff gets out of sync, you now have a mechanism to actually see that it's out of sync. And so if you go into your web portal again, and you go into the event stream option, which we launched at Autodesk University last year, you'll start to see content. If I sort by update, I can see here my colleague Kyle has inserted a couple pieces of content into some projects, and the current version of that or revision of that content is out of date with what's currently available in the cloud. This is live. This is in production. You can use this today on a per-project basis to see when your projects are getting out of sync with the models you have in your cloud. This will also continue to work for manufacturing content. So when the manufacturers make those changes, we want that data to flow downstream to you so you can start to see, hey, I've got out-of-sync products currently in my active designs, and I want to reduce those change orders so you can go in and make those updates as you see fit as a firm. Okay. So a couple different differences on how UNIFI Connect is different. We really want to make sure its firm-wide approval process is in place. You guys have control over this. You can whitelist your manufacturers, hopefully create that path of least resistance so that your designers gravitate towards using both generic and manufacturing content in one place where it's tracked, it's mitigated, it's controlled on your from your perspective as a firm-wide perspective. Quick searching and insertion like you saw. One thing that's also interesting is we're exploring new ways to with different types of content. So manufacturers today, they typically just distribute RFAs and loadable families. UNIFI is compatible with the system families, the drafting views, and the schedules. So we want to start to explore, can we get all those different types of content types and element types into the system? So if I don't want to go in and swap all of my shared parameters to make a manufacturer's piece of content match my schedules, well, if the manufacturer has a schedule, maybe I can just bring that in and use it and tweak their schedule. So there's lots of different opportunities there. There's lots of system families, which previously may have been challenging for manufacturers to create, like maybe roofing systems or wall systems. They can now create those and distribute them through UNIFI as well. So it's opening up some different doors, and it's pretty exciting in that regard. And then the communication and feedback loop. It's really important, and we want to make sure that that is something that can be taken advantage of, a little bit different than how, just going to a website and downloading and can kind of foster some new communication there. And then we're not adding any limits or restrictions. So for the manufacturers online here, we're not going to impose any limits on how many brands you can have. We want you guys to basically distribute your content in the way that's best for the design and build community to consume it. So we're going to be, we've got a pretty flexible system developed specifically for that purpose. So at UNIFI, we're continuously speaking with our AC customers. We received lists of manufacturers you guys would like to be included in Connect, and we're working to partner with each one of them to make that content available to you. If you have any new specific manufacturers that you really want to see on the platform, be sure to email us at sales@unifilabs.com. Let us know and give us a contact to speak with there, and we'll go ahead and follow up on your behalf. Also, be sure to let your preferred manufacturers and manufacturing reps know about Connect, so we can get the portals populated as quickly as possible. And we've worked with hundreds of firms and hundreds of manufacturers providing high quality BIM strategies over the years. So we're really looking forward to getting a lot of these folks up and running in the platform here, making this content available to you so you can take advantage of that content in your active designs across your firm. Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. I see there's a lot of questions being submitted. Go ahead and please continue to submit your questions. Let's start off with this one from Tony. This is for Lauren. Tony says, brilliant observation regarding generic versus fully specified products. Can you say more about the workflow you're using of moving from generic to specific objects?
Oh, okay. Yeah, great question. At some point in the design phase, you have to make that switch depending on your intended model uses. Some families allow you to swap very easily. Others, not so much, and you actually have to potentially remodel. Every time you have to remodel, it becomes almost a wasted effort. And what we're really focusing on is, sometimes you have to lay it out. You need decent, good, generic content to get your concept out there, to be able to review it. And, at some point when you make that transition, you need to be able to swap to that reliable content. And if you don't have it or don't have access to it, it becomes very limiting. So it's not only about planning what you want to do, it's planning when you need to make that switch, and it's educating your engineers and your modeling teams, and sometimes they're one and the same, on what is going to happen and what additional data may be available that wasn't available in the more schematic conceptual model. But there really is a need for both. So I kind of went around your question, Tony, a little bit, but Revit does allow you to swap components. So quite a few elements you're able to just change the type. But when you do change types, you run the risk of some things not connecting, having some errors. So understanding how these families behave allows you to create those workflows that's needed for your project.
Yeah, I've seen some examples. There was a hospital that the hospital owner and an architectural firm was developing some different rooms for them, and they're actually having options within this nested room family, which has all the components in it, to kind of progress through the project phases and showing it off very much in a schematic form. But then as they change kind of the quote-unquote LOD options in there, more and more data is turning on in those families. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of skin that cat. We've also seen different third-party applications, especially for piping and ductwork systems, that can swap from generics to fabrication levels of detail. And then Autodesk is also integrating with the fabrication ITM content and the databases there to try to make that a little bit easier as well. So there's definitely a lot moving in that space, getting more and more accurate, higher levels of detailed content. So let's see, we got another good question here. Is Connect free to have access to manufacturing content? Yeah, I should have mentioned that. It absolutely is. Connect will be 100% free for all the UNIFI customers, architects, and engineers. You guys will be able to go in, subscribe to these manufacturing channels. Manufacturers are subsidizing this to distribute their content on the platform. So that keeps it free for you guys, for the consumers of that content. Let's see, we've got, go ahead guys, keep getting in your questions here. We've got quite a bit. Oh, here's a good question. I didn't cover this. I'm actually going to flip back into Revit. So we got a question here that says, can I copy content out of the manufacturing library and localize it for my firm's standard? So in regards to shared parameters. Yeah, we all know the manufacturing content, the shared parameters are typically not going to match what you guys would use. There is a feature in here where anything that's from a channel, you can right-click and there's a new option called Copy to Library. So I can click on that and then copy it to one of my internal libraries. And when I do that, that particular piece of content is now a version, right? It's kind of branched off from that original one. And you can then go in, you can modify it, you can do whatever you need to do, swap your parameters so it works for you and your firm. But there is an analytical connection back to the original manufacturer's model. So if they do make a change, we should be able to track through and update you and notify you that, hey, this element has been modified. So we can kind of keep a tracking system in place so that we don't orphan or silo data, which is something we're trying to solve, not trying to make worse. So we think that we can keep these analytically connected, and then how we communicate that, hey, things have been changed will be through notifications and things like that. But you can currently copy to local today and modify the manufacturing content if you need to for your firm's use. So that's a great question.
And I'll add on to that, Steve. You know, that's part of the risk of rogue content, is not having our shared parameters and not behaving with our, preferred schedules and methods. That having this ability definitely differentiates, teams who are using it from others who have to pay attention to that. And being able to choose the vendors and the libraries and manage that for our users and making sure it has the right parameters, that makes life a little bit better for people in the model management community, that, they really can have an environment that works for what they need.
Yeah, I've got another good question here. So this is from a manufacturer. As a manufacturer, I already have content available. Can I still host it on Connect, or does UNIFI have to make that content? Yes, you can absolutely still distribute your previously made content on our platform. We do have a few quality measures that we do check, and there are some other questions regarding what are those quality metrics you guys are checking. And so basically what we're going to be checking is, are there imported CAD geometries? We know that's taboo. There are some very rare instances where that may be okay in some specific furniture types of products, where some sweeps, falls, and revolves and blends just can't be made with the Revit kernel. There are some workflows that may be okay, but very, very sparingly will that be allowed to pass through. And then besides that, do the types break when being switched and inserted into Revit? And then is the identity data filled in and provided, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to import something or insert a manufacturer-specified product and then there's no data specifying the manufacturer. So those are the basis level of quality that we're going to set. So we're setting that minimum bar threshold, that hygiene threshold, and we're going to make sure everything going into the platform is going to meet that threshold. And we're going to do some things moving forward to maybe enhance that or maybe customize what the hygiene level is that's approved at your firm or is acceptable at your firm, because your firm's version of, or I guess perspective on quality may be different than the next guy. So we're gonna explore some different options there. So we want to hear, if you guys have ideas, please do reach out to us. Let us know what ideas you have on how we can implement and enhance that in the future. Let's see. Here's another one. Okay, so this is for Lauren. So as a VDC manager, does your department use more manufacturer supplied content than the design departments typically would?
When we are doing, I would say, a VDC project, and the biggest difference that we identify a VDC project from our standard design BIM projects is the integration of construction methodologies. So if it is a VDC project and we have fabrication scope, we are using vendor and manufacturing content. So it does increase when we take on more of that responsibility. If we are delivering an EPC project, engineering, procurement, and construction, you know, we are responsible for the engineering, the procurement, and the construction. So if we're buying the product, you know, we're going to want to specify the vendor and we're going to want to have accurate content. So that has elevated the opportunity for that usage. But we have to balance that because the other half of my company is just an AE service side. And being able to balance when it's appropriate is not necessarily easy, because if you have access to a really good, you know, door family, but it's too much than what you need, you know, it's about educating your design staff and, all right, what is appropriate for the project, and building those champions within those disciplines, understanding the nuances of putting in too much detail versus not, you know, versus what you actually need. So, you know, as a VDC manager, we do have to run maintenance on the models. We do have to communicate with our disciplines. We do have to set goals and boundaries to where we need to take that. But, you know, as we integrate more with construction, you're going to see a need for more of that fabrication level.
That's great. Thanks, Lauren. Okay, I think we'll answer one or two more here, and then we'll look to wrap. I've got one from Sean. Let's see. I heard you were planning on having the ability to add our shared parameters into this channel content. Is that in the pipe? Sean, I can't go too much into you know, future development plans, but I would say you're on the right track there. But you can certainly we have a customer advisory board, which, you know, various companies can be a part of and kind of give some input into future development items. So I would say reach out to me afterwards, and we can chat about that some more. I got another one here from Tony. Let's see. The localizing or branching of content is a great feature. Is it possible to run an events report listing all localized objects on a subset of projects? If so, is it easy to get from this report to visualizing objects in Revit in a project context? So I believe, if I understand your question correctly, there is inside of this event stream, if you go into this event stream, you can actually filter by project. And so once you filter by project, there's an export to Excel button on the right-hand side. So it is possible to look at an entire subset of content that has ever been loaded from UNIFI into a project and see whether that content is, you know, in sync or out of date with what's currently in the cloud, and run a project report. It'll simply go to Excel today, and then that project report can be, you know, sent to different folks within your firm to go ahead and mitigate that or update that content. So I believe that answered your question, but we can get into that offline in a bit more detail. One last question here we'll take. Do you have commercial kitchen appliances also? How broad is your content? And this is from Dale. So great question. So we have worked with several hundred manufacturers across all different verticals, and we're not targeting any one particular vertical. So you're going to have everything from architectural to kitchen equipment to electrical types of products. And what we're doing is really working with folks like yourselves to let us know what particular brands you really want to see in here, and then let your manufacturers know you want to see their content in the system, and that's going to help us get there quicker. But we're talking with folks all across the board. But in the kitchen appliance space in particular and food service equipment space, there are a lot of manufacturers that we're talking to there right now. So hopefully soon. But you guys will see this is just getting up and running. We are in the process of onboarding many manufacturers right now as we speak. And so this will continually become more and more populated as time goes on. So again, be sure to come back and check this out from time to time and see what's new. There will also be newsletters that will be sent out and different notifications to the administrators to let them know new brands are available in different frequencies. So we're looking at different ways to make sure that you guys are educated as to what new brands are available and getting the word out to you so you can go and check it out and then subscribe and provide access to your user groups. Okay, so with that, I really wanted to thank everyone again for joining us today. It's been a great time. I really do appreciate it. And Lauren, special thanks to you. Thank you for spending time with us today. I really appreciate your insights and your expertise. I'm sure our audience was very appreciative of having you on and spending some time with us. So thanks again.
Yep, you're very welcome, Steve. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Again, we will send out a link to all registered attendees, a link to the webinar so you guys can share this with your colleagues, watch it again if you need to. And if you guys have any questions, feel free.